Alright guys, I'm just going to do a quick video on how I air layer my citrus and my fruit trees over here. Specifically the figs and mulberries. This right here is a mulberry tree, Pakistani variety. I already have air layers on it, but I'm going to show you real quick how I perform my air layers on these trees. Alright, firstly, the way I choose a branch, I want to have a suitable branch to where I have multiple nodes on her. You got one node here, another one here, 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 and then on up, right? So multiple nodes where growth is happening. At the nodes is where leaves form. It's also where fruit forms, and as well as roots. So this is one air layer I did last month, all right, on this tree, along with all the other ones. So I chose the lowest node on this branch. Now I'm going to count up a couple of nodes so that I know for a fact I'm going to have fruit growing. So one node, two nodes, three nodes right here. I'm going to have three nodes where I know leaves and fruit will grow from this root ball right here. Above this third node right here, I'm going to do another air layer. So I'm going to air layer this node right here, but I have multiple nodes above it still where I'm going to have growth. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to scar it up. All right, I'm going to take off the bark to where the cambium layer is showing. Okay, with my pruners, I cut above the node and below the node the initial cuts, all right, through the bark. There is some sap coming through it, or coming from the cuts, which is fine. So this is how I do it. I do my initial cuts above and below the node just like that, and then I'm going to do one right through the center. And I did one right through the center. So that right there is going to ensure that only the bark is coming off to where the cambium layer is showing. Alright, so it's an easy peel. It should be an easy peel. Sometimes you got to dig with your fingers, but just depending on how deep the cuts are. Alright, so I'm peeling it off from where I made the cuts below and above the node. Alright, clean cut. I took the bark off. That's the node, that little bump right there. Now, the green part that you see right there is the cambium layer. The cambium layer, that's where all the nutrients, all the sugars, the water, and everything that comes up from the roots comes up through the cambium layer, and that's how it feeds the tree. All right. But what we're going to do now, I'm going to damage the cambium layer. I'm going to scar it up. All right. So I scarred it up. I used my grafting knife, and all I did was go in, scraping it up and down just like that until you damage the green part. You don't want to go too deep, like don't get into the wood. What you're doing, you're damaging it up to where you're wounding it. If you think about it as, you know, this being like your arm, the branch, and you fell on the ground and you broke the skin and the vessels. That's what you did on this branch right here. Now the next step after this, I get my aluminum foil and my soil ready. All right, this is what I use. I use sphagnum peat moss. All right, I get it wet, get it damp. It's real fine, material. All right, it's not dirt, but once you get it wet, it'll remain wet as long as you keep it sealed with this aluminum foil. This is my technique of doing it. All right, so you get your aluminum foil. Look at the size of my palm compared to that. The cut that I did on the branch is not that big. All right, I like using just that one node. It's about palm size for my my air layers. All right, what I do next, I use some rooting hormone to where I'm going to apply it to the soil medium right there, the sphagnum peat moss. All right, rooting hormones applied. You don't need too much. I know people, what they do, they'll use their finger, or they'll use a brush to apply it to the wound. So what they'll do, they'll dab their finger into the rooting hormone and then apply it on this wound like this. I don't like doing it because there's not 100% contact with that rooting hormone on your wound right here. So I ensure it by placing it on this the sphagnum peat moss. Now the Super Thrive, I have a mixture of a cap full to a full bottle of water, and what I do, I spray it down. Not too much, just enough to cover up the area, saturate it with that Super Thrive, and you'll be good to go. Now you got to apply it onto the wound. All right, it's applied. This is the aluminum foil wrapped up sphagnum peat moss with the rooting hormone and my Super Thrive in the mix. You can see that there's some sphagnum peat moss on top. What I normally do, I just cut it off, cut some of that out with the scissors so that none of it's really protruding from the top or bottom. But just an easier way to do it is to add a couple of small pieces of aluminum foil over the top of the sphagnum peat moss. All right, there's the final product. Now the last thing I do, I mark it. You see all the tape I have on these other ones? I'll wrap it up with some tape and mark the date on it. That way I know how long it's taken since the wound takes to heal up and get the roots to form. Now I moved inside the greenhouse over here. I have my Celestial Fig. Stands about 10 feet tall. It's in a 10-gallon pot and it's growing perfect. I have no issues with it. I've been taking care of this thing in here along with all my other plants, my tropical plants. So I did 2 air layers. They were done on January 20th for both of them. They currently have a lot of growth coming up top, and you can see some little some fruit forming, which is fine. I have no issue with that. I'm gonna unravel this and show you my the roots forming on it. And here you go. It's about the size of my palm. I made this one just a little bit bigger than my normal ones, only because of the branches, how thick they are. But the roots, look at the roots, nice and thick, formed from the nodes. This is the sphagnum peat moss. I did it the same way as I did this the mulberry I just showed you. This one was done on the 20th of January. Today's the 6th of February, so it didn't take too long to root these. I'm gonna give this about another week or so. I want more roots to form. That way I can keep the growth up top instead of cutting it off. So proven fact, it works. All right. Now say for instance it did not work. If no roots formed, if somehow, some way, something happened, nothing formed, the branch would still be there. Like everything would still be alive. It would not die. That's why I like air layering, because no matter what, you could save this limb whether or not roots form. All right, versus cuttings. If it was a cutting, not all cuttings take. So if a cutting doesn't take, then you lose that cutting and it dies. This way with the air layering, you're ensuring the survival of the limb. Whether or not it roots, it's all up to Mother Nature. This one did. I have great success with this method. So if you have any questions, let me know, comment, and I'll get back to you guys with that. So thanks for watching.